This is a battle in the Use It and Lose It tournament between Babykiller and AK. His name was Bombs of Bautista or something like that for this game, so he likes to change his name. And this is an interesting matchup. It's Baktria versus Pontus. The reason why it's interesting, they can bring very similar mercenaries in the form of mercenary Scythian horse, and there are 4 for Pontus, and there are 4 for Baktria as well, I think. Maybe just 3. They can bring thorax swords. Thorax swords are better than Pontic swords. They cost more. So there are 4 thorax swords. Then there are these scaled thorax hoplites, together with eastern spears. Baktria noble horse, one of the few melee cavalry that are able to hang with Cappadocians. Now, if you look at the stats on the Bactrian, let's see, the Bactrian noble horse, 42, 29, 15, 36. So 49, 29, 15, 38, 37 melee defense, 70 armor, 90 health, 60 morale, 95 armor, 90 health, 60 morale. So these 2 units are extremely good cavalry, but Cappadocians slightly cheaper, I believe, than the Baktria noble horse, just going by memory. And what Pontus can do, of course, Pontus can bring the very cheap mercenary naked swords. They are still mispriced, still too cheap. And it might not seem like much, but when each unit is 100 cheaper than they are supposed to be, then you can essentially bring an additional unit. So that's quite substantial. Because a lot of the time you'll see between 2 good players, you'll see it come down to just a few units slugging it out in the end. And if you could bring an additional unit, that would be very helpful. So very strong cavalry flanks here. The combination Cappadocian Cav and 4 mercenary Scythian horse. I think we're going to see a rush for the central hill though, but Baktria has infantry support close by. The eastern spears being rushed up, very smart. They actually have a great missile block chance. Oh, the mercenary Scythian horse archers get hammered here, and it's so devastating for them. Being sent in here, but when they get to fire, they're going to be fired down on. And this is a severe mistake being done here early on, using the mercenary Scythian horse archers like that, because they are losing so many men. The eastern spears haven't lost anything, but they didn't manage to kill much, and they took a downright beating. So down by 35 men that early, and essentially no losses here for these 2 losses. 1 man lost. So Pontus moving up here, we can see more of the Pontic army. Hoplites, Pontic swords. The thing with the Pontic swords, they only have 50 health. And 50 health compared to the 60 health of the thorax swords means that the thorax swords will do exceedingly well against them. Pontic swords are absolute garbage. But then again, Pontus has nice cavalry and nice cheap support units, so I guess something has to suck for Pontus. Eastern slingers as well in the center. Baktria are fairly content to just stay here, and I don't quite get why. Baktria is at the skirmish cav disadvantage. So if I'm Baktria, getting this position is first priority, I think. But we'll see how it works. Noble blood cavalry over here. Quite a lot of cavalry for Pontus. Pontus has more cavalry than Baktria. And that's the thing about Pontus. Pontus has 2 very good melee cavalry units. Both the Cappadocians and the Noble Bloods are extremely good. Now the Eastern Archers are firing on... Let's see... Firing on the Thorax swords. If the Pontic swords are to have any chance against the the thorax swords. The thorax swords need to take severe casualties, or just a frontal cav charge. That could work as well. Because Pontus has cavalry enough to cover the entire frontage of Baktria actually. And here come the Cappadocians. They need to continue straight through into the Eastern Slingers for that to be worth it. They do not continue. They just gave the Eastern Spears a little love tap. The Eastern Spears broke. The Cappadocian cav didn't take that much damage really. And now the mercenary Scythian horse archers are able to fire on the Baktria noble horse. So well timed there. It was a good move. Turns out it was a good move. The Baktria noble horse gets caught here. Downhill charge for the Pontic swords onto the Baktria noble horse. It doesn't seem like the precursors did too much, if they did fire their precursors. Mercenary naked swords charging in. This is a mistake. Probably have gone here instead. And now there are engagements all over. The thorax swords getting hit by noble blood uphill, so it won't hurt as much as it would have hurt if it was downhill. Pontic swords firing into the flanks here, but getting hit by Baktria noble horse. This is really, really chaotic. The mercenary naked swords frenzy charge in, but it seems like the charge gets interrupted or perhaps redirected. The Pontic swords into the Baktria noble horse. And over here, the noble blood cavalry is losing decisively. They're up against so many hoplites, and the Baktria noble horse has been able to disengage, and a downhill charge into this blob is going to hurt like a mother. The scaled thorax hoplites are actually winning decisively against Pontic swords and mercenary naked swords, even though they're fighting uphill, which is nothing short of amazing. Not even using phalanx here, and everything is engaging at this point. It's such a chaotic battle. The Baktria Royal Guard in the center here is holding. Is going to hold well in phalanx against the Pontic swords. Noble blood fighting up against Baktria noble horse. Baktria noble horse is going to take it if there isn't any support forthcoming. Strange they didn't rear charge here though, because the Baktria noble horse could have finished off these two units, I think. And in the central blob here, the hoplites attacked in the rear by Baktria noble horse. The thorax swords are holding, but there's a bit of a blob going on here. Quite a few units of Baktria are blobbed up. But the Pontic swords just get absolutely murdered by the Bactrian Royal Guard. And Pontus doesn't have a lot of infantry left that isn't engaged. Pontus has a lot of cavalry left, but that cavalry isn't being used to rear charge. It's being used to chase after enemy cavalry units. And these cavalry units here, they need to start rear charging really, really quickly, because all of the Pontic infantry units are struggling. Pontic swords struggling here, the Bactrian Noble Horse about to die. But the Bactrian infantry is holding strong. This central engagement is so important. That's where the Pontic general is. And the Bactrian Royal Guard is about to get the charge here on the Pontic sword general. But he is taking fire into his back here. Still, he's a very healthy general. He hasn't taken many casualties. So the Bactrian Royal Guard is going to get a great charge here into the Pontic swords. He took about 10 casualties going in there, but that 29 charge bonus is going to... Yeah, the Pontic general is about to bite the dust here. And once the Pontic general bites the dust, there are some Pontic skirmishers left here. I don't see a lot of cavalry left for Baktria, just a few horse skirmishers. A mercenary Sarmatian horse. There are some noble blood cavalry causing mayhem in the back of the Bactrian lines. So this could very well turn into a situation where Baktria only has infantry left on the field. And if Pontus has cavalry left, then the Bactrian infantry is going to be hard pressed. Yeah, the Pontic general is dead. The Bactrian royal general is doing fine. Now, one of the problems with Pontus is well, the Cappadocian cavalry now is disciplined, actually. It used to not be disciplined. The noble blood cavalry is not disciplined, though, I think. So, only Cappadocian cav left on the field. No noble blood. There's a noble blood, and it's not disciplined. It's taking a lot of fire here from these depleted mercenary Scythian horse. And the hoplites broke in the center. This fight is still going on. I think using this mercenary naked sword against the Bactrian cavalry was such a mistake. And Pontus has paid dearly for that mistake. The Cappadocian Cav shaken due to exhaustion. They do have a resistance to heat, but they've been doing a lot of running around. So they are extremely slow now. Late game Cav is deadly, but it can't be exhausted. Now they're getting hit by precursors, and goodbye Cappadocian Cav. This fight is still going on. The mercenary naked swords are just standing around. Now they're getting an order to go and attack something here. A lot of the Bactrian units in the back are getting surrounded now. The mercenary naked swords, if they start winning, if they start winning this combat, it might stop them from routing off the field. But it is against scaled thorax hoplites, so they're winning slightly. They're not going to be able to win that engagement decisively. So I wonder how much ammunition there's left on these Pontic units now. They might break if they lose a few more units. These are peltasts, so they're not just going to break. The peltasts might actually kill off a few of these Cappadocian Cav. They are super depleted. You can't just rout peltasts off the field with a single charge from mercenary Scythian horse, like you can with other skirmishers that don't have armor and good shields. So the mercenary Scythian horse archers, they do have their bows still, so they do have ammunition. These guys, they do have their bows still, so I'm sure they don't want to cause any friendly fire here. But there are too many Bactrian units left on the field now. It's just Pontus is going to chain route, and that's going to be it for Pontus, really. So I think this came down to Pontus just not having the infantry support for defeating Baktria. And let's just have a look. Let's do a quick infantry count. Yes, that's, yeah, 7 melee cav, that's overkill. This is a decent Bactrian army here. All of the infantry does a reasonable job. The Bactrian Royal Guard does quite well. But for Pontus, the problem is Pontic swords, and Pontic swords cannot stand up to even scaled thorax hoplites or thorax swords. So you can see how much better overall the standard hoplites do and the mercenary naked swords do. But what Pontus can do, and what I think Pontus should have done in this case, is to bank on, let's see, Pontus. So Pontus can go very cheap on the... I don't like Pontic swords. So Pontus can bring mercenary naked swords. Pontus can bring mercenary Celtic warriors. Maybe a Pontic sword general, just to avoid bringing the very expensive Pontic royal cav general. That could be a decent idea. Now, sure, the Cappadocian cav is a reasonable match for the Bactrian royal cav, and sure, the mercenary Scythian horse archers are quite are a decent enough choice. But here you can kind of see the Pontic problem, because these units are so cheap, you definitely want to have more infantry. So you can bring more hoplites, but what are you going to make up the rest of your army with? You can't bring any other good spear units. If you're Iraklis, you're going to be bringing pikes, most likely. Most players won't get their money's worth out of pikes. So Baktria against Pontus, I think Baktria has a very good chance against Pontus, because Pontus, I mean, the mercenary Celts and the mercenary Nakeds are decent units. It's just that they are outmatched by their counterparts. So for Baktria, for example, if you want to go very surprising with Baktria and just not, you can bring Bactrian Royal Guard, you can bring scaled thorax hoplites, you can bring thorax swords, you can bring the Bactrian noble horse, and now you don't have a lot left for the mercenary Scythian horse. So yeah, mercenary Scythian horse this is going over fun, so I would have to change this up somewhat, but the basic idea is that the Scale Thorax Hoplites and the Thorax Swords will perform well against Pontic Swords, and thus I don't really see a point in bringing Pontic Swords for Pontus against Baktria, but it's a tough call what to do when you're Pontus against Baktria. I definitely favor Baktria in that particular matchup. But having 7 melee cavalry against Baktria, a bit risky. It creates there's sort of in my opinion, there's sort of a sweet spot with cavalry where it's nice to have a cavalry advantage, but there is a limit to how many cavalry units you can micro when you also have skirmishers and infantry to micro, and that limit is going to be different for different players. But I've noticed a trend where if people bring too much cavalry, they tend to forget about some cavalry units at key points, and if a cavalry unit gets charged, if a cavalry unit gets caught up, if it takes fire, then it's very easy to waste that cavalry unit. So cavalry advantage, great, but getting the cavalry advantage by having not necessarily just more cavalry, but by using the cavalry better together with good infantry support, I think that's a lot easier for most players, including myself, to cope with, rather than having to micro 7 or 8, or in this case 7 melee cav and 4 skirmish cav, so 11 cav units in total. Having to micro that is very difficult, and one of the reasons why the infantry centric armies tend to do well, it's a lot easier to micro. The engagements take longer, and infantry engagements tend to be a bit more forgiving than cavalry engagements are. But melee on melee cavalry engagements, they take quite some time, but cavalry is also relatively easily neutralized in this game due to terrain and different infantry units and such. So good game, extremely hectic, extremely rapid game. This is the first game, so let's see what happens in game number 2. Strength and Honor.